My name is TJ Randall, and I'm actually originally from upstate New York, moved to Boston, and live in the Boston area. And I run the customer success organization here at Instruqt. If customer success was a song, what song would it be? Let's say, we'll say Sam and Dave, Hold On, I'm Coming. Because I swear half the times customers, when they come to us, like it's important for them because it's important on their timeline. And I always feel like we're kind of like jumping to the next thing. Typically, I like to start out early with the teams in the Netherlands. So when I first come online, I often make sure that I'm in sync with the different groups that I work with. And that just is a function of time zones. Then I pretty much dive into customer health reports for our top customers. I like to see the numbers and see what they've been doing over the last 24 hours or past couple days. And then in the afternoon, I tend to focus on either projects that I'm working and managing, or a lot of my customer calls happen in the afternoon, and that again is just a feature of time zone more than anything else. You get in a pattern, the 6 hours turns into a bit of a pattern, and it actually works really well because I know that when the US isn't online, I'm sure especially the development teams, they feel like, oh, we can get stuff done, they're not bothering us, so to speak. But I know that, like, for example, at the end of my day at 5 p.m. Eastern time, if I need something for the next day, I can message the team and say, hey, I'm gonna need this for like 10 o'clock in the morning. And then that gives them time to be like, okay, let me get started in my day and do that, or at least I hope it feels like that. And vice versa, I find that I'll be working with somebody on the team and they're like, hey, TJ, no rush, but I need this by tomorrow. So that 6 hours actually works in our favor because during the day we have dedicated time together where we know we're overlapped and we can be together. And that it also gives free time, I think, for both sides of the puzzle to focus on other things. I would say the most difficult part tends to be making sure feeding back the right priorities. For example, like to the dev team, like what's most important, because when you're dealing with a lot of large organizations, everything's important to them, of course, but it's also like making sure that I'm balancing that with our own vision, where we want to take the company, where we want to take the product. So I think that tends to be the translation part of that, and then how do you manage customer expectations, those types of things. And again, making sure that it's building that sense of trust so that you can tell them no. That tends to be challenging as well because again, they have day jobs, we're just another vendor sometimes. So the first 17 years of my career, this might be hard to believe, but I was actually a developer. And I know I'm really good at PowerPoint now, but I promise I was a developer at one point. And I'm always interested in the release process. So as a developer, even myself, all I was focused on is what I was building and then testing it, making sure it was ready to go. But especially in a large organization, that change has to get consumed. So there's a training department that has to build training around it, a sales team, marketing team, like all these other teams are involved. So it's kind of like the funny thing about Agile. Like Agile sounds great. Every 2 weeks we're gonna produce something. But there's a business that has to consume those changes. And that's just our business. That's not the customers who are really why we're building those things. And so that's why I'm so passionate about teams, everybody being involved in some form, at least understanding those changes so that when I'm talking to the development team and they're working on a new feature, I can understand how does that relate to me? Is this something I need to sit down with customers and talk with them about? Or is it more of like I can shoot them an email like, hey, this is finally coming, let me know if you want to talk about it. So that's why I know that I'm just in general very team oriented in that way. And that's why I like small organizations like this, like Instruqt, where we're in it together. But it also is important because otherwise we're just building things and we're not necessarily like rolling them out and interacting with them in a great way. Well, I think the most important thing for any company in general is customer experience, right? If customers aren't having a good experience, they're going to go find another solution, right? That's true whether you're talking about automobiles or software. So having that focus with the sales and marketing team and the product team as an example, it's not about building features for customers. It's about taking almost like the aggregated set of conversations that you're having with customers and distilling that into like patterns and ideas and direction. And then talking with a sales team to say like, okay, how would you talk to somebody who's brand new, they have this pain, but they don't know how to solve this pain? How would you, use our product to talk about those things? Or when you're talking with marketing, like we have to go find people who have this pain. How do they talk about it? And like, where are they talking about it? And that's where I have a lot of passion around that. It's like, yeah, how do you find those people and how do you get them to relate? Once we aligned to the person's problem, it was pretty quick to, wow, this is exactly what we needed. It was more of the upfront work that was the harder bit. So that's why I think it's so critical that product, sales, marketing, customer success is almost like one unit. And when they talk about things, they're really focusing on that customer experience. How is a customer going to experience this thing that we're building? Well, I think at the end of the day, it's hard to remember that customers buy our solution because they're trying to solve their pain point. So for example, you have a customer, they basically want to be able to sell their software with less people, right? So there's a measurement to that, there's a KPI. It's like, okay, what's our time to customer acquisition or cost of customer acquisition? And so they say, our outcome next year is to drop the cost of acquisition by $100. That's their outcome. And so everything relates to that ultimate outcome. Otherwise, if you focus on things like product, you're really only looking at like the features and you're looking at almost like the minutia of like how things work. So there's like an old saying, like, you don't buy a drill, you're really buying a hole in the wall. I don't really like that one, but I always used to try to change that to like, I need to get to work on time. That's why I buy a car. And yeah, it's important to have all the features and there's things that you like in the car, but at the end of the day, I just need to get to work. So those are two horrible analogies, but I think they relate to the fact that we as a software company have to make sure we're focusing on customer outcomes. What are they trying to solve, right? They need to get more leads, they need to get better leads, they need to close deals faster, they need to close deals more efficiently. That's what they're buying from us. And Instruqt is just the product that enables that. I'm a firm believer that sales and marketing are absolutely they get the most benefit from Instruqt usage, both from product awareness. They're going to have better conversations. Because again, we see that in our own sales team. If somebody does one Instruqt track, the entire conversation changes. And because it's such a fast time to that aha moment, right? You see it and you look and you're like, this is exactly what we've been talking about. So I definitely think those are the two key personas where they see it, they get it, and then they're like, okay, make it happen. I think the key to building a great product is really understanding, like looking at your customers and what they're asking for. And when you hear that, you have to not hear it as just the thing that they're talking about, right? So they're going to ask, like, can you please change the log files because I need it to do X, Y, Z. If you listen to customers, and again, across customers, so like multiple customers asking for similar things, this is what our product teams do, right? They're trying to figure out like, where's the market going? So if you have 4 banks and they all are asking about log files, some light has to go off and be like, maybe the banks really need something in terms of reporting and monitoring. And the fact that they're asking us means they haven't solved it yet. And so I think that to me is ultimately what you're trying to do, right? The joke is that Steve Jobs, nobody ever asked for a perfect portable camera. They just asked for, they wanted to take great pictures. So he's like, why don't we put on your phone that you carry all the time? I think that's where customer experience comes into play. If you build customer experience in a way where like everything is a priority and every customer's ask are their own asks, you're gonna have disgruntled development teams, you're gonna have frustrated product teams because everyone's like, we can't build all these things. But if you have a customer success team that is really focused on customer experience and understanding like the bigger picture, like, yeah, why do all the security companies tend to focus in these areas? We can solve it how we want to solve it. That's a great part about being a startup, and we have super smart, creative people. It's more of like that, is like when you talk about the market, like you try to understand like the why. Why do they need that? I think there's a couple things that are important for content for lead generation. First and foremost, at the end of the day, content has to change behavior. So this is how I think of it. A lot of times customers will talk with us and they'll be like, we're trying to build brand awareness, so we give away our tracks for free. It's like, let somebody use it, kick the tires, we always say, right? Give developers hands-on. One of the things we notice, if they gate that material, there's almost like two camps you immediately enter. It's like, do we gate it and then we have to check all the credentials and it has to be perfect data, or do we gate it just so that we can test their engagement? But one way or the other, I think that's like an example of behavior. If I first log into Instruqt, TJ, and I say, I'm TJ at yahoo.com, I'm engaged because I want to learn the solution, but I'm not engaged because I want to enter a sales cycle. I think for us, in terms of content, that's how we have to think about it. How do we move TJ from TJ at yahoo.com to TJ at acme.com? Because the minute I'm there, now I'm ready to go. So the content actually is the most important thing in this equation. And I think content creators, for example, they tend to focus a little bit like developers on like, well, I created content. And I think they're not thinking of that bigger outcome. It's like, what do I want this person to do when they're done? If it's just to be aware, like that's important. I'm not saying that's not important. What I'm saying is you haven't changed the behavior. So like I think content creators should really like sit with their product marketing teams and their sales team and say like, okay, we wrote the best piece of content possible. What should happen? And maybe the marketing team says, well, they write a post on Instagram, how much they love it. Cool. So now the content creator can think about that. Like, how do I do that? So I'm going to teach them about the product, but I have a goal in mind, you know? And I think that tends to be the most important thing. Because if you're saying, I want this person, if we're doing lead generation, for example, that means when they're done with the content, they're going to be ready to go. They're going to be engaged and say, yes, this is the solution we're looking for.